The music, all it does is nurture that creativity that every kid is born with. And if we stifle it, that's doing a tremendous disservice, not only to your child, but to the world. It's because we need people who are creative to come up with creative solutions to problems that pop up all the time.
Welcome to Book Reporter Talks To, where our interview guest today is Brandon Slocumb, and we are going to be talking about his debut novel, The Violin Conspiracy, which is a Good Morning America book club pick and a Book Reporter Bets On selection. Yes, selected by me as one that I am saying to you, just read this. I confess to have absolutely zero remembrance of classical music, though my mother took me to the Young Concerts Orchestra at the Philharmonic as a young child, and I have zero retention of that, except I remember we dressed really well and we would go out to lunch before. So don't quiz me on this at all, but I was completely intrigued by reading this book. So welcome, Brandon. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's start with you telling us about The Violin Conspiracy.
Absolutely. Violin Conspiracy is a story of Ray, who discovers that his old family fiddle is actually a priceless Stradivarius violin. And this discovery shoots him into superstardom in the world of classical music. And right before the Tchaikovsky competition, which is basically the Olympics of classical music, his instrument is stolen. Will he get it back? Will he compete? Will he find out who did it? Got to read The Violin Conspiracy to find out.
I know, it's just like sitting there like, whoa, what is going to happen now? So you're a musician, you're a music teacher. What inspired you to write a book?
Summer of 2020. I was at home like everyone else, eating, getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I got to do something else. And these are actually stories in The Violin Conspiracy that I've been carrying around since I was 9 years old. With the events of George Floyd in 2020, I figured it would be a good time to have people receive these stories.
Mm-hmm. And sit there and do a little bit more thinking about what actually happens out in the world of music. Mm-hmm. So how long did it take you to write it? I mean, you have the summer.
I write really fast, and I have a terrific agent who likes to edit for me on the fly. So it took me 2.5 months.
People would be so jealous of that. There are people that take years. There was somebody that I saw interviewed the other day. It was 20 years between books. So wow. Seriously, this is very impressive. So, okay, we're going to get into the editing process and everything later on, but let's talk about the story. Starts out with the violin being stolen in part 1, which is called The Disappearance. So we immediately are drawn in, like we're not waiting for the crime to happen later. It starts like right up front. And then there's the backstory and the resolution. Why kick off with that? What just made you decide we're going to kick off with the theft?
I thought that it would be a really interesting, it's just a grabbing moment. It would, just to start off with a bang and to keep you turning the pages from then. I like to write like I'm watching a movie. And if I'm watching something, I don't want this long drawn out, okay, what's going to happen? All right. Just get right to it. And I thought that would be a really fun way to get started with the book. And I'm glad it paid off.
Yeah, it completely did, because you're drawn right in. You're just like, wait a second. And I love when they open the violin case and there's a pair of Chuck Taylors there. There's a sneaker. There's just one. And I love the way they start to trace where the shoe was bought. And I love that this is what we're going to go into. So we've got this crazy pacing to the piece, and it contributes to the backstory. I mean, the book just goes like this. And there's so much that we could talk about, but I can't do any spoilers. But what did you do to keep the tension building? Like, did you actually sit there with Jeff, who I have to know is your agent, and pace, like, this is the way we've got to build the tension in the book?
Absolutely. We had a few disagreements on the direction that it should go from time to time. I'd say it was a 50-50 draw. Sometimes he won, sometimes I won. But we were both in agreement that we wanted to keep the pacing really quick. Mm-hmm. There were times that, can we slow it down here? Let's think about it. No. Let's just keep it going. It's a page turner. We wanted to live up to its hype. And I'm glad we did. I think it turned out really well in that regard. It's just, I would go back and read during, after I would write a couple of chapters, I'd go back and read I'm like, whoa, this is actually really interesting. So I would get behind because I'm reading from the very beginning every single time I went back. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a good story. I like it. It's good stuff.
This is working. This is absolutely working. So we've got this fabulous character in Ray's grandmother, and she's well drawn, and the love between them is just so special. There are moments he just reaches out to her. He wants her to be part of his life, and he reaches out to her in moments of joy and moments when he really needs her as well. Now, I take it that this is a little bit written as a homage to your own grandmother.
Absolutely. My own grandma Nora was the sweetest woman in the world. And as I was writing her, I could literally feel her right over my shoulder, just, just whispering into my ear. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, grandma would say that. Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. And yeah, I could hear her voice, everything. Even as I read it today, I know exactly what she sounds like saying everything. It's stuff that I've heard before. And I thought it would be a really nice homage to her.
And it was really nice because it's a different voice than we're hearing in a lot of the rest of the book. Everybody in the family, and we'll get into that, is like after him. There's competition. There's all these kinds of things that are happening. And instead, we've got the sweet woman. And when we hear her voice, we just know we're going to a different place in the book. We just, totally see that. So Raekwon is such a great name for your protagonist. It's something unusual, or, as a character. So is there a reason you chose that?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Two things. That was one of those fights that I won. Jeff, my agent, was like, I can't sell a book with a protagonist's first name being Raekwon. It's like, that's exactly why you need to. We need to. This needs to happen. It needs to happen. There are more people in the world named. Not everyone's name is Bob or Bill or Mike or Ted or Jimmy. That let's get real with it. I had a student when I was teaching in Pennsylvania, his seventh grade music class. His name was Raekwon, and I would call Raekwon. It's like, Mr. Slocumb, please, just call me Ray. Just call me Ray, not Raekwon. And that always stuck with me. And that was like maybe 15, 20 years ago. And I just thought that was the funniest thing. It's like, you know what? I'm going to do it. He was a nice kid. So that's what I'm going to do.
It's so funny when unusual names like that come up. We have friends years ago, and they said their son's name was Caden. And I said, you know what that means? And I said, he'll never have a bicycle license plate. That's what it means. And people laugh. And now there is a place that actually makes custom bicycle license plates for all these children with all these unusual names. So Raekwon can have his own bicycle plate, which I'm
That's
sure
right.
years ago was, that's just not possible to have. So how old were you when you first started playing? You were in grade school?
I was 9 years old in the fifth grade, which in violin music standards, that's a bit late. Had I started 3-4 years earlier, I probably would have been on a much different track.
Wow, very, very interesting. But you wrote in really important issues into the story as well about race. And you're really mentioning the strains in your life, like really mirror what happened to Ray. And there are things that happened along the way. And some of these scenes are right from things that happened to you. So let's start what happened with your experience while playing, because there's some stories there that I think definitely translate to being you.
Let's start with the wedding scene. That was it's a modified version in the book, but something very, very similar to that happened. I was in college playing at a wedding, and the dad just, he could not get us out of the church fast enough. And he said, you ruined my daughter's wedding. And it's like, what is going on? We don't understand what happened. We played beautifully, and the bride was happy. The mom was happy. Everyone was happy. And, we got outside, and this guy was just, you could just see the hatred in his eyes. And it was really the first time that I've ever experienced anything like that. And it was really painful, and it stuck with me for a long time. So I really wanted to put that instance in the book, just so people could get an idea. Wow, it's not all, flowers and sunshine when you go to play in a string quartet or at a wedding. And the incident in Baton Rouge, the only difference between Ray's experience and mine is that he went to jail. I did not. It was terrifying. I was on my hands and knees on the ground with a gun drawn on me because I made an illegal lane change, and I thought this was it. Yep, this is how it ends. This is not fun, but it's been a good run. Back in 2000, that was not fun either. But yeah, that's where we are. Those instances, a lot of what happened are taken directly from instances in my life.
Yeah, and the things that the car pullovers always really surprised me, because there's one guy, he's actually the masseuse that I go to all the time. And he said he gets pulled over like a couple of times in the same town by the same cop, and they swear that he stole the car. And he says, just wait a second, you pulled me over yesterday. Like we did this whole thing. Now we're going to do it again. And he said it happened like 3 times. And he's
Wow.
like, am I just that not noticeable? Like he was driving Mercedes and they just assumed that couldn't be his car. And that when you drew that incident, it's like it accelerated so quickly. It's like you made a long lane change and all of a sudden the character's in jail. You know, this was happened.
That's scary.
Yeah. So, okay. So in music land, can prejudice be overcome by showing talent? Like if you show you're really good, do people look at you differently and say, oh, I wasn't seeing him as my equal before, but now I do?
I can only speak from my personal experience and drawing on Ray's experience in the book. It's like Ray constantly had to prove himself, constantly. Even when, you know, he proved himself, people wanted him to go further. And it's like, you have to do more. You got to do more because we're not quite convinced. My personal experience, it's been, it's you're always proving. You always have to be twice as good as everyone, as your white counterpart. I often do conducting clinics, or I will conduct, an all county orchestra or district orchestra. I will walk into the room and seriously, people, the teachers, the students, they think that I am one of the maintenance men, or that I'm there to move furniture or empty the garbage. And, you know, I'll ask for someone's fiddle. Can I see your violin? I'm going to show you how I'd like for that to be played. They're really reluctant. They're like, you know, who is this guy who wants to, this is my violin. You can't have this. Okay. And then I'll take it and I'll play. And then it's like, oh, okay. Now we believe you. But yeah, it's constantly having to prove ourselves constantly.
And it's like all this time later,
Yeah.
I'm walking in the room. It's like you almost want to send a picture ahead. This is going to be me. Like I'm in the room. Have the
thought
students
about
be
it.
perfectly, you know.
I've honestly thought about it. It's like, you know, it doesn't matter how I dress. It doesn't matter, you know, how I speak. It doesn't matter. So it's like, you know, I'm just going to go in and be comfortable. So,
Right.
you know, it's hot. I'm in a t-shirt. I've got tattoos. I've got a few muscles here going on. And it's like, all right, well, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They've probably never seen a musician like me, especially one that plays violin. So I'll give everyone the benefit of the doubt there. But it does get old sometimes.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, I've got to go prove myself again.
Yeah.
And even if you're in school and you're doing really well, it was, you know, people walk in the room and they say, oh, this is affirmative action is the reason he's here, or this is, they had a whole list of reasons. And the thing is also in the book, which I'm sure happens in real life as well, people were speaking very loudly about this. It's not like they were whispering amongst themselves. It's
Right.
almost like it was their badge of pride that this is what they were picking on this other person, no matter how talented they were. That was
Yeah,
part that killed me, you know?
it's like, you know, well, let's put someone else down to make ourselves feel better. You know, let's we know how hard we worked to get here, and there's no way this person could have done that too. So we'll just, you know, we'll pile on. And, you know, again, I give people the benefit of the doubt. You never know. Maybe they were having a bad day. I don't know. I'm an optimist. I just think
Right.
that, you know, I just try to be optimistic.
This exactly. So was classical music always a touchstone for you? Was that something? I mean, I will confess that I would go to piano lessons and just want to play Bridge Over Troubled Water every week, you know, and the teacher would make me play everything else. And then the last 5 minutes I could play Bridge Over Troubled Water, but I would play it every single day if you let me. And I always used to say, maybe if you taught me pop music, I'd like pay more attention to this. So was classical your wrote in, or was, you know, something else you wrote in?
It was actually my all the way classical music. When I was introduced to it for the first time in 3rd grade, Mozart Symphony Number 40, I'd never heard anything like that, and it just my mind expanded, you know, exponentially. And, you know, I always listened to the classics on the radio, like 70s and 80s rock and R&B, Marvin Gaye, and, you know, the Temptations, the Commodores, Queen, ABBA, Kansas, Boston, you know, all of that 70s and 80s stuff was just, I mean, I knew it all, fantastic. But when I heard classical music for the first time, I was like, what is this? This is amazing to me. And I just really gravitated towards it. And it was something that I instantly fell in love with. And I was like, I got to know more. And when I had the opportunity to start playing violin, you know, it was like Christmas every day. It was the greatest thing that I had ever experienced. And, you know, it was truly a life-saving and life-changing force.
Yeah. So when you're hearing music, when you're hearing classical music, it's you're hearing the words in a different way. You're hearing the words as notes. And
Yeah.
like you think about a regular song and you're hearing it as notes. And I joke because the music that's from the 70s, 80s, and some of the 90s, we know all the words to. I mean, you
Mhm.
can hear basically a bar on the radio and start singing that song.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I can do that with a lot of music that's out today. And I feel like I sound really old saying that, but it's so funny. But you can hear like bing, and you know exactly what's going to happen and where it's going to go.
Yep.
And I'm not hearing, and my sons look at me and they're like, well, you don't have to do that. And da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, but I'm just saying that's what usually happens.
Same thing here. Same thing.
So if you hear a chord or you hear something or you hear a series of notes, you can actually remember, like, if you played the piece, like
Oh yeah.
which piece it's from and where it's from.
Yeah, my friends, especially in college, my friends would always go to me. It's like, Brendan, what is that piece? And then they'll sing like da da da. Oh, that's blah 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 blah. Or how about this one? And they would just try to test me on it. I'm like, I know what this stuff is. I know all of this stuff, and they would never be able to get me. And when we were like contracting people to play for weddings, and the bride to be didn't really know the pieces, names of the pieces. I'll never forget this one lady. She was a lot of fun to work with. She said, I want you to play that piece. It goes da 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 da, and everybody looks at me. Oh yeah, that's the Vivaldi Mandolin Concerto in C. Yeah, yeah. Okay, we'll do it. I've just always been able to do that, and I don't know. I don't know. It's just I love it.
I just love those series of notes, whatever. And what I really loved was you were describing the tension that is involved in playing. Like you think of people, okay, you hear people practicing, but you don't realize the physicality of playing and practicing
Right.
until I was reading this. And at the end, he's drenched in sweat and he's, playing up. And I just found that part was so interesting of trying to work over and over to get the keys to your fingers in the right, I'm going to say all the wrong words, but the fingers in the right places and the right, you do it. You're much better at the go, 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 go. I mean,
Carol,
please,
you're
from key.
right. You're totally on the right track. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Yeah, it really is a physical effort. People don't realize. They think that you just kind of get up and play and just do it. There's so much involved in it, and the hours and hours of practice. Just, one day you might just practice technique. One day during your practice session, you might only practice 2 or 3 measures just to make sure that you're getting those right, just over and over and over and over and over again. And it really involves a lot of physical and mental work. If you're playing a piece that's like a half hour long, you've got to maintain your concentration. One slip and everything just goes, just explodes. It totally implodes on you. But it really is a physical labor. I would practice 3.5 hours every day when I was in college. And, I wondered where I got these biceps from. And no, okay, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense. I would practice all the time. And yeah, it's a physical labor. It really is.
It's a physical labor. And also you have to play with others. Like when he's in the competition,
Mhm.
there's a pianist that's playing and you have to like measure with each other.
Oh
And
yeah.
she really doesn't love him at the beginning at all. So, but you're measuring, you have to actually pay attention to
Mhm.
where each other, and if she gets ahead, you've got to catch up or you've got to get her on the same track as you.
Mhm.
And I found that interesting because I would think that in a competition like that, you'd be by yourself. You wouldn't have an accompanist. But if it's somebody you don't even know and you have to
Yeah.
get into that zone, it's very
It's
interesting.
it's a real sign of good musicianship. You have to be flexible and you have to be able to do it at the drop of a dime. And Ray was really good at that in the book, just because he loved it so much. He knew everything about what it was that he was playing. He went in depth with the music. He's like, what was Mozart thinking? What was Tchaikovsky thinking during this? And you would hope that the people that are joining you, like the musicians on stage, the orchestra that was accompanying him, his piano accompanist, you have to trust that everyone is on the same page with you, and you have to have a really, really, really high level of musicianship to be able to play at that level, to instantly make those small adjustments. It's the difference between winning and losing.
It's between it, and it's that practice, but it's also being able to make a twist if you need
Hmm.
to be able to make
Hmm.
that change if you have
Those
to do
easy
it.
adjustments. Yeah.
So let's get back to the fiddle, which is also, we're gonna find out the fiddle that's just tucked up in the eaves of the attic with an old alligator case. And it's found to be a Stradivarius. It's supposed to be, all of a sudden, the family's like, whoa, we now own this precious thing.
Yes.
We've been having him just go play. We don't care. Now all of a sudden it's music to our ears and everybody
Mhm.
loves us. And the family, all of a sudden, this whole family wants a piece of it. They want it sold. They want their money. They want XYZ. So also somebody else wants it. So tell us about these two conflicting people. Actually, there are three people that all want this violin. Let's talk about them.
Well, in regard to the family, I think in defense of the family, I think it makes perfect sense. You really don't understand, what is my nephew doing? He's just going around playing. He can play on anything. This is 10 million bucks. Let's split it. Why wouldn't you do that? I'm driving a Volkswagen right now, and I could be driving a BMW tomorrow if you would just sell this thing, and you're still everybody's happy if you do, so it does make sense to me. It might be a little selfish, but I totally do get it. And in regard to the Marx family, if it's okay if I speak on the Marx family, I don't think I'll be giving anything away.
No, you're not giving anything away.
They, in my opinion, are just plain greedy. That is just greed personified. It's like, let me see. My great grandfather owned his great grandfather, so he must have stolen it, and that means that we've got a right to take it back. It's just, how far will people go? It's really some interesting insight into human nature. It's like, you wouldn't think that. And we were coming up with this idea for the Marx family, the ancestors of the slave owner. It was a little far-fetched at first, but then it's like, people will go to some extraordinary lengths. So it's not really that far-fetched. Let's go with it.
Yeah. This is where we want the money. This is what we want to do.
Yeah.
So have you ever had the pleasure of playing a Stradivarius? Have you ever done this?
I'm going to say not yet. There may be an opportunity very soon for me to, and my fingers are crossing fingers.
Well, Ray talks about always keeping his violin, how he locks it. He was always carrying it when he went out to dinner. It sat next to him, and the depths he goes through to safeguard it. And I was remembering years ago, Yo-Yo Ma leaving his cello in the cab, in the trunk of the cab. He was really tired. And it became like a whole thing in the city of would he get it back? Yeah. And then there was the conversation of why was he in a yellow cab? And he's like, well, I'm every guy. I just jumped in the cab. And why did you not take it with you? Well, I was tired. And it became this whole thing in the city. And meanwhile, there's this taxi driver that doesn't know anything, who's driving around the city with this in the trunk of his car. And all they're waiting for is him to come off his shift and come in. And when he comes in, he opens the trunk and there it is.
Yeah.
So it's such a great story. So how carefully have you seen these musicians, like, watching their instruments through the years, like going through the airplane and things like that, going through security?
I learned, I honestly did learn. I know what I do for my personal instrument. Like I was at the grocery store the other day. I'd come back from a quartet rehearsal. It's strapped to my back in the grocery store because all it would take is a brick through the window and my violin is gone. So you just can't take any chances. Your instrument is, if you're a good musician and you're serious, your instrument is an extension of your body. It truly is, and you don't take chances with it. I know people that have bought seats on airplanes for their cellos, so I'm not putting it underneath. If I have to buy an extra seat, okay, here, my cello is sitting next to me. The cello is seat 16A. Yeah, there it is. And some people won't even allow them to go through the screeners, won't even allow them to go through the X-ray machines, because you just never know. All it takes is for you to take your eye off of the instrument, just like in the book, for 1 second, and it is gone, and you never know. So you do treat it like an extension of your body.
Right. So it's like over your shoulder, over here. And that throw the brick in, take whatever and go has become so much more prevalent, even in the last couple of years, because it's, we've got people that are desperate and they see something, I want it, and let's go. And we were having incidents where there's a walking trail around here. And they said, all these people had their pocketbook stolen a couple of weeks ago because you're not going to carry it on the trail with you. So what would you do? Just leave it in the car. And it's like, okay, so this is where we're going. So I could just picture the instrument when I was reading that, So we've got Dr. Janice Stevens, who takes Ray under her wing, and she's his biggest supporter. And she helps him shape his career as a musician, because I think that's something that needs to happen. It's not just playing music, but how to shape your career. So in your author's note, you talk about your own version of Janice in your life. So what does she do for you, and who is she?
Thank you so much for asking. My Janice Stevens is Dr. Rochelle Vetter Huang, who taught me everything that I know. She taught me how to play the violin, and she taught me how to teach. And I am forever indebted to her. And in large part, this book was an homage to her. because when I tell you, she did so much for me. I wanted to quit. I didn't think I was going to be able to do this. I had bad performances, and it's just, oh, I can't do this. I want to quit. And her encouragement really kept me going. And it was just, she told, I mean, I can't speak her praises high enough. It's just, and it wasn't just me, it was everyone in our violin studio. She was just, I mean, we went from like 0 to 100 in a one semester with her, and everyone was like, what is going on in the violin studio? Man, you guys are just on fire. And it was all because of her and the confidence that she instilled in us, and with the honesty. That's the thing that I really, really admire the most about her. I would play something great and she would tell me, Brendan, that was fantastic. You did everything right. I would play something poorly. She would tell me exactly how bad it was. And I often appreciate it. It's okay. So what do I need to do to make it better? And I wanted to please her. And, I think in the book, Janice understands that Ray needs someone like her in his life, because he really doesn't have anyone aside from his grandmother. And, he doesn't get very much support. And just her presence is enough to bring out that's something in him that she's always seen, that's been there, that he never knew. So she was definitely a blessing to him.
Yeah, she's the cheerleader. And also kind of like, not really disciplinarian, but a motivator of, you have to go here. You have to go here. You will succeed. We'll get there. And this is what's going to happen. And it's also that phone call number one of what you make, especially when the grandmother's gone. This is the phone call I make for my speed dial one if I need help. So now, has she read the book? Has the real?
She actually read the manuscript right before it went to publication, and she just, I got to do a Zoom conversation with her, and I hadn't seen her in person in years and years and years. And after all the tears, I'm like, okay, I'm done crying. We caught up, and she was just, Brenda, I can't believe you remembered all of those little details. And I'm like, why would I not remember all of this stuff? You taught me everything that I know, and I'm indebted to you forever. Of course, I'm going to remember this. I'm going to do everything I can to let everyone know just how amazing you are. And it was really, really very, very sweet. And I'm in touch regularly with her now. And it's just, it's amazing. It's amazing.
What's amazing also, no edits. Just think, she didn't sit there and say,
exactly.
Wait a second, down here,
and
Brett,
Jeff
a little bit more.
And Jeff was like, oh, you got to send it to her to make sure that everything is right. I was like, look, she taught me everything that I know. I'm telling you, it's right. When I send it to her, she's going to say the same thing. And of course she did.
And then Jeff was like, wow, this is like really good. I guess he really does know what he's talking about.
That was the proof. I always have to prove myself.
Exactly. So for readers who don't know about the life of a classical musician, you actually walk people through what that's going to be, because you're either in an orchestra, or you're a guest soloist, or you're a featured artist. So talk to us about a little bit about what the different ways you could take your career, and what Ray does in this book.
What Ray does in the book is actually quite remarkable, considering that he didn't start lessons until college, which is, in musical standards, especially with violin, that is super late. He would have been in lessons at age 4 if he were to be on the track that he's on, and he had to work really, really, really hard. Janice saw that he was on a soloist track because he just played so beautifully, and he had the aptitude to learn several concertos, and he had the technique, and it was just, he had the innate musicality as well, which went along with his technique. So she pushed him into the soloist track. If you plan to play in a major orchestra, you're constantly working on orchestral excerpts. Don Juan by Strauss is the first page of Don Juan is on every single orchestra's excerpt list, and it is not the easiest piece in the world, but that's one of the tracks you could take, and you're just practicing those pieces, and you can get in to an orchestra, and once you're in, man, you're in until you want to go someplace else, and that's quite nice. And if you want to do the chamber music route, you can find some friends to play with, a string quartet, and if you get your stuff together really tight, we're going to focus on Schubert. We're going to do all Schubert quartets. All right, that's going to be our specialty. And then you get booked around. That's a really good way to go as well. And you get to play with your friends all the time, which is also very cool.
A nice way to be spending your time.
A
friend last year up in Massachusetts, he put together a buskers group, and there were different on different corners, because during the pandemic, people were not inside, they were outside. So he set this up, and people would actually audition and see if
Oh,
they were, good enough to play. And then they had all different kinds of performers. They had people who were doing acrobatics, all different kinds of things on different corners. And people would go out that in the evening, and they would be able to, on each different corner, know that something different would be happening. And it was
wow.
such fun because you could be playing either solo or with some friends
Mhm.
or whatever, just to pull it together. And he just did, I'm trying to remember what town it was in Massachusetts. He's going to shoot me, but I don't remember. But it was just really, it was something different to be
Mhm.
doing at a time where people had to get really creative because
Oh
you
yeah.
weren't playing indoors. You weren't teaching lessons quite the same way. You just weren't doing any of the things that, and it's like, well, what are we going to do? And how are we going to take music and move it in a different direction? And it
Mhm.
was interesting to see what people could do. They did one thing where everybody was playing online, and they were all playing the cello, and they were all in different places, and they had it together, and they were all playing the same piece at the same time. I'll shoot you an email when I'll find you the link for that, and I'll put it in down below as well, because it was just these very interesting moments of what
Mhm.
people were doing with music to inspire, like, what could we do at a time where we all have to be apart? And
Right.
everyone was on their little box playing the same thing, and they were all over the world.
That
So
is, I mean, we had to do it during the pandemic. Lessons stopped, concerts stopped, practicing stopped, everything stopped. That was our livelihood, for a lot of people. And what are you going to do? You had to get creative. Yeah.
yeah, creative, like, what we're going to do as well. A lot of people, do they teach as well? Do a lot of musicians teach, or is this, oh my gosh, I just could not bear listening to some child learn to play. At some point, my ear cannot handle it.
A lot of people do teach, a lot of working musicians do teach. You have those musicians who specialize in just beginners. They love to hear the development from scratch to, oh, and actually, oh, it's a lovely sound you've got. And that's very rewarding for some people. Some people are great at it. Some people only teach advanced players who have played 10, 15 years and are working on major literature. And then there are people like me. I do it all. I go from beginners to advanced, from child to adult. My oldest is 65. My youngest is 5.
Hmm.
It just depends. I'm a teacher. I was in the classroom for 25 years. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and you love seeing seeing the
Yeah.
progress of what's going on, and also the people who say, "I have to walk away," like, this is just not my thing. And you
Mhm.
can see a child being pushed at age 5 by mom and dad who has zero interest, and this is not going to end well. This is not
Right.
going to be, the best thing happening.
Oh yeah.
Not going to be good. So during performances, Ray always extends a pale pink rose to somebody in the audience. And I just love that moment. And it was a gesture. And why did you include it? Because it was something so special.
It was. I really wanted it to be like a tribute to Grandma Nora, because it just reinforced in the story how important she was to him and how special she will always be to him. With the pink rose going with her pink house coat and her hair rollers and everything. And plus, it was Ray's way of separating himself from the herd. I'm different. I am here. Look, you have to see what I'm going to do next. Who am I going to give this rose to? Will it be you? And it got the audience kind of excited too. It's like, all right, well, okay, this famous guy is giving me a rose. Wow, I feel so special. So yeah. And it was just a nice gesture as well. So Ray thought of it more as just a really nice tribute to his grandmother, whereas the other people around him, yeah, this is a great gimmick. We've got to capitalize on this.
Right, including with the pink shirt.
Yeah.
And I loved when they were picking the clothes, and he says, "I'm wearing yellow like a pineapple." I mean, it was really, really funny to see, as somebody's going, "You look good in blue." No, I'm not going to wear blue. You should be wearing purple, and it was just great. Because it's so much like people think of what you should do, and then all of
Right.
a sudden the moment just comes of, this is what's going to work. So then we've got the International Tchaikovsky competition. It happens in Moscow every 4 years, and it's where Ray has set his sights. This is the Olympics of performing. This is where you want to be. And is this something that you follow through the years? Like, do you like every 4 years? Are you looking forward to this competition, or is it just a good touchstone for the book?
A little bit of both. When I was in college, I would follow the Tchaikovsky competition, because there were at one point I thought, maybe I'll be able to maybe I could. There's a chance that I could do it. Back then I was much better, much more in shape finger wise with my fiddle. So there was always I always thought I might have had a shot. And then I aged out and I was like, okay, but I thought that it would be just it would be good for Ray competition wise. He knows he plays well. And now this was his opportunity for the entire world to see it and to see how he compares to the other kids, not really kids, but the other, his peers, his age across the world, just to see where he ranks. And, it was a huge confidence builder as well for him. It's like, okay, I have been accepted into the most prestigious competition in the world. That is huge. All right, now I'm going to go show them what I can do. I don't have to prove myself over and over and over and over again here. I can just do it in one shot and then the world will know. So it was kind of it was a really validating moment for Ray, I think.
Yeah. So people who are in this competition, how old are they usually? Like, there's an age range on it, like the Olympics, or not really?
There isn't. I did so much extensive research on this. I don't remember what the age out is. I think it's under 30. You can't be over age 30. Maybe it's 28. I'm not sure. And I think it's from 16 to 30, I think. Yeah. So there's a window in there.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. It's really interesting with what's going on in Moscow right now to think about 2023. And there have to be years where this has not happened, but this is a real time that this may not happen. And you just think about, or either everyone in Russia wins, which is, exactly what they're probably looking for at this point. But it's interesting to see that people who are prepping for something like this next year, like the Olympics, and you don't know what's going to happen, and you're putting your heart and soul into being a competitor on this level, and your chance may be gone for 4 more years. And where will you be in 4 years? Right. And I was thinking about the reading, because you really Olympians, there are like little girls that were doing gymnastics that will not be doing that in 4 years. They can, their bodies will change, everything will change. And there's just this moment where you realize it was the right moment for Ray, like everything clicked and everything came together. Yeah. And except for this huge loss, though, the instrument he really wants to play.
Absolutely. Yeah, it all worked out. It was, I like to think the timing worked out perfectly, just because everything just lined up right for him. Like you said, it was just everything could not have been more perfect, except for the theft, of course. But
except for the theft.
That was the one little thing in there. Yeah.
Where would be your dream place to play? Like when you think about, I could be on stage here, this is it.
Okay, so I have to admit, before last month, it would have definitely been Carnegie Hall, but I did get the opportunity to play on the stage at Carnegie Hall, and it was incredible. It definitely lived up to its hype. I'd have to think now it would probably be one of the concert halls in Europe. I'm thinking maybe the Royal Albert Concert Hall. I think let's shoot for that.
We'll shoot for that. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Anybody listening out there? Yeah. Look, this is what he's saying next.
I can practice. I'll practice. I will. I promise.
Well, when we were little, we were taking piano lessons, Mrs. Schlosser used to say to us, Carnegie Hall is not big enough for your talent. That's what she used to say on the days that we got it right. And that was her line all the time, is Carnegie Hall is not big enough for your talent. So I was like, okay, there we go. So how is writing like playing music? What are the common threads between the two?
I like to think, I'm always thinking artistically like a musician. And as I'm playing a piece, you have 3 sections. It's like a symphony. You have the opening, you have the middle section, you have a slow, moderate section in between the middle section, between the 2 fast movements, and then you have the grand finale. So I like to actually compare the writing more to watching a movie than to music, because if I get too into, I'm a musician and I'm an artist with the music stuff, I just get so bogged down into, like, when I'm listening to music, I don't listen to it to enjoy it. I'm like, that note was a little too short. Oh, that was a little high. Oh, we could use more violin there. The cellos are a little bit. So I'm constantly doing that. So people have asked me, do you listen to music when you write? I can't do it. I can't. Give me anything but classical music to listen to. But yeah, it's a way of expressing. It's basically a way of expressing yourself on the page, like I can do through my music. I know what I'm feeling through my music, and I wanted to express that when I was writing the musical sections. And I got a little carried away because I would let non-musicians read, and they were like, this is like a foreign language, I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, I got to put in some metaphors that actually make sense. what do I think about when I'm playing this piece? Oh, this is what it sounds and feels like to me. So does it make sense? Oh yeah, I get that. That makes perfect sense. Gotcha. So I had to
Gotcha.
do a lot of that.
It's a lot of this going back and like, oh, well, was I a little too technical for everybody? Really?
Yeah,
Doesn't
yeah.
everybody think like this? Seriously, you know?
It really was. Yeah, it was an experience. It's like, what do you mean you don't get this? What? Oh, okay,
Why
it's
are you
just
not
me.
understanding? What, you had no training in school? What is this? You know? Actually, my next question is about music programs in school. As libraries also are important library programs in schools, and these are typically the first budget cuts. The librarian goes, the music teacher goes, and especially over the last couple of years when children were being taught remotely,
Mm.
it was who's paying attention to music class. I mean, how are you doing a lesson on online? How are you doing your chorus practice online? How are you doing any of these things? What do you think this is like? This is hurting future musicians. It's hurting future people who are readers at the same
Mhm,
time.
mhm.
What do you think can be done to really, is it private fundraising? What happens to try to make music be more important in these programs?
Well, first, I want to give a shout out to all the librarians everywhere. Just, I mean, a lot of people don't realize how important library science is, and the librarians that carry out these duties. I remember as a kid, every other Saturday, my mom would take us to the library and we would get books every other Saturday. And it's really what got me interested. I was going to be a biology teacher at one point because I loved nature and flowers and trees and animals and dinosaurs, and just everything. And I was really, really into that. And that was all through my library experience growing up as a kid. But in answer to your question, I think it's about exposure, because not only are we stifling the next generation of musicians, but my sister played cello and she is now a doctor, and just, it's not only music, it's anything that involves creativity. The music, all it does is nurture that creativity that every kid is born with. And if we stifle it, that's doing a tremendous disservice, not only to your child, but to the world. It's because we need people who are creative to come up with creative solutions to problems that pop up all the time. And it's not, everyone is not on the doctor track. Everyone's not on the attorney track. Everyone's not on the engineer track. And, there are lots of kids that go to school just for these arts classes, and it saves lives. It totally gets them involved, whereas there's not another subject that would do that. And I really think it's about exposure. Let's get these symphonies to come into the schools. And instead of once a year you get to go see the symphony, let's do it once a month. If you can pay for new uniforms for the track team, you can pay for a trip to the orchestra, to have your kindergartners go to the orchestra a couple of times a month. I really think it's about exposure and people just really getting involved. Right to your school board, right to the principal, right to your senator, right to your congressman. Not an email, write a physical letter. I think people need to know that you are really serious about this. It doesn't take any time to just send off an email and it goes in someone's inbox never to be seen again. Write a physical letter, give a call, let them know who you are and that you think that these things are important.
Yeah, and I think that also it's a learning of discipline as well, as much as
Mhm.
sports is. It's learning how to take care of your instrument, learning
Oh
how
yeah.
to play with a group,
Mhm.
learning where your role is with the group and everything. It is just as important as sports.
Absolutely.
We have our town parade. The middle school always marches and the high school band always marches.
Mhm.
And my younger son was in the marching band, and I was so excited because the bass drum is coming home. And he's like, you are way more excited about this than I am. He goes, the way I'm seeing it, you're going to love this. I have to walk from the post office all the way to the municipal center. It's going to be hot. I'm going to be wearing the uniform. And we just have these pictures that are like, say, they're like, dun, 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 dun. And we've got Mrs. McCluskey, who is so excited about like marching along with the kids. And we were just laughing because he says, like, you're so much more excited about the fact that this is at our house. And somebody said, we need somebody with an SUV to drive all the drums over to the start of the parade. And I'm like, I'm there. I'm ready to drive the drums. And he was just there like, oh my God, now she's volunteering to drive everybody's drums with us. I was so like way into this. And I don't think I have a musician between the two of them listen to music well, but it was my moment of, okay, let's pretend we're musical for just one moment, please, So in the book, we've got the first section, then we've got other sections. We've got the joy of family, we've got treasure, music making, starstruck, competition, and breaking in. So were those sections there at the beginning, or did you and Jeff like shape those later on? Because they're logical breaks in the book that give us those moments of pause of like, wait, I'm reading this, what's to come? What's going to happen next?
It was actually after every section was written, it was like there was some reordering done. It's like, well, maybe this should come first. I think the pacing will be better if he goes from this section to this section. So coming up with those sections, it was after a read through. It's like, okay, well, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If this happens, then this happens. Let's rearrange this and let's do some adjustments. So it wasn't all outlined that way. It just ended up being we put it in order the most by, it just seemed logical to do it the way that it was done, and think it that it really kept up the pacing, and it made it more intense.
And it's funny because as soon as I saw part one, I go, when's part two coming? What's going to happen? And I am the type of person that I'm terrible. I fold down pages, or I stick some. Okay, I'll pretend I stick something. Like I do tiny fold downs because it was a hardcover, tiny. If it's just an arc, I do big fold downs, right? And then I go back and I look at the page and I said, what did I have? And many of the pages I turned down were the ones that were those chapter heads, and it was like, or part heads. I'm like, why was this there? And I think that someday you're talking to book groups, it'd be really interesting to see what people got out of those sections. Like, did that, like, was that the portender of what's going to happen? Let's now, because we've all read it, we can talk about what happened in that section.
Oh yeah,
so there's a part to be able to do. So you wrote quickly. The editing was a little bit longer, I take it, but this book came out quickly. I mean, this book came out quickly compared to finishing the summer of 2020 and the beginning of 2022. It's out.
It was pretty quick, and I have to say my team is just phenomenal. Edward Kastenmeier was my editor, and he just the most thoughtful edits, and he just had some of the best suggestions. It's like, whoa, why didn't I think of that? That makes perfect sense. I like where this is going. So I was excited actually to do a lot of the revisions that he came up with through the editing process, and I think they all paid off. I think they paid off spectacularly.
So here's a question. Was he familiar with music? Was he familiar with classical music? No.
Not at all. And most of the people who worked on this book were not familiar with classical music at all and had zero understanding. And so that really tells me that because they put so much effort into it, it made sense to them, that the way that it was written, it actually made sense. And I was really happy about that. I don't have to go back and explain, well, when he's talking about this is what he means. And this is what if I have to do that, then I haven't done a good job at providing a good story.
Yeah. And they're like, wait a second, maybe we can't really quiz them because we really don't know. Like, and look, if your former teacher thought it was there, we know it was nailed. Exactly. We got it. We got it. So you're selected as this Good Morning America Book Club selection, debut novel. Okay. So now the novel's coming out. Now this. How soon before that happened? It happened in January. How long before that did you actually know it was going to happen?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say. I really don't. I'm not trying to be smart or anything, but I really don't know if I'm allowed to say. But okay. I will tell you, when I found out, it was the good news that I needed at the time. I will say, just because I honestly don't know what the protocol is for revealing such things, but I found out way in advance. I will say way in advance. Yeah. So that was actually quite thrilling. The book hadn't even gone to print and it was selected. So it was way in advance, and I was over the moon. I couldn't believe it, and I needed that good news. It was awesome.
It went from their computer to your hands, from your computer to their hands.
It did. It pretty much. Yeah, it was fantastic. Just a fantastic thing. Opportunity, just amazing. I'm on a high from that. I just can't believe it.
And you should be. It should be. Years ago, Tayari Jones was picked as an Oprah pick for American Marriage. And she was really funny because she said her mother would call and say, so what's going on with the book? Nothing. Nothing. Is anything happening? No, nothing. And she says, because you can't say anything. So it's easier to say nothing is going to happen. And her mother said later on, like, you said nothing was going to happen. And she says, I couldn't tell you what was going on. But so it was that moment where I know this great secret, but I can't say a word to you.
That was tough. It honestly, I could tell no one. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell my sister. Nothing. I was like, Yeah, it's going pretty well. That's all I can say.
That's all I
Okay,
can
we won't
say.
ask. Yeah, they didn't pressure me too much, and I'm glad they didn't because I might have broken, but I'm glad they did.
You might have done that. You know, your conversation with GMA when you were interviewed included that very special moment on the Carnegie Hall stage. And we're going to actually put a link in that down below for your moment of standing there up on stage. What was that like? I mean, it was just, you're just standing there in this place, this cathedral for so many musicians.
Walking in, it was, I mean, I honestly don't have the words to describe how incredible that feeling was. And I'm going through the motions, and I honestly did not realize what was happening until I played my last few notes. I was like, I'm literally on the stage at Carnegie Hall playing. I'm playing. No words, no words. It's like there are people that will have worked their entire lives to get to where I am right now, and will never be able to do this. And it's just an incredible feeling. It's for non-musicians, it would be the equivalent of, whatever your biggest, highest achievement could be in whatever field you are. And this, for musicians, it's one of the top things in the world that you could do. And it felt like it. And I tell you, it just, I'm speechless. I don't even know what to say.
And you picture people in those seats, like you can
Oh,
picture
yeah,
what
yeah.
the whole place would be like, filled up to the rafters and whatever,
Yeah.
what's going on.
And then I go back and I think about it. It's like, I just played on the stage at Carnegie Hall. Did I really just do that? That really just happened. And it did not dawn on me until my last couple of notes. And I was all, I just played on this. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Did that. All right.
It really worked. That really worked.
It really happened.
We had an office in the city that was a block from Carnegie Hall. And we would see musicians going in and out. And then there were the different rooms you could play in. There was the main concert hall. And then there were other smaller concert halls that you could be playing in as well. So we'd be seeing people going in and out. And during the part in the book where they were evaluating the value of the violin, and, where all those places were tucked in little areas around our office. If you went up to I think it was 58th or 59th, there was a whole musician's row where people were fixed instruments and whatever. So I felt very much in place as I was sitting there, because I remember just looking out the window, and when I turned around, it was always, you could see Carnegie Hall right out the window. It was very neat. We moved in.
Awesome.
Like,
yeah, we wanted it to be as authentic as possible. Real New York feel. Yeah.
Have you spent a lot of time in the city in New York?
The last couple of years, I've probably been more than I have, in the last 10 years. Just going back and forth with the book, everything with the book, and then, making videos and meeting people, and just, it's been fantastic. I love it there. I can't wait to go back. I think I'm back next month. Yeah.
Complete debut experience. This is what always happens, just so you know.
I'll take it.
Yeah. After reading about the classical music so definitely explained that you might be surprised reading your bio that before, besides being a performer and a teacher, you collect comic books and also action figures, and you perform in a rock band. So here we go.
I do. Yeah.
Let's do a lightning round.
All right.
Favorite classical piece to play?
Summer, Four Seasons by Vivaldi.
Ooh, okay. Favorite action figure?
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Wait a second. Wait, I'm just seeing some people over your shoulder. Okay, hold on.
Got so many back here to choose from. Oh my gosh. My favorite action. You know what? It's got to be my sculpture of Iceman up here.
Okay. All right.
I'm not going to move it, but yeah.
Okay. There you go. You must come to New York for New York Comic-Con. You must come to New York for that.
I'm totally coming this year. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm there.
It's like definitely geek heaven. I have to say.
I can't wait.
It's just, it's one moment of being more creative than the next and seeing what people are doing. And just to go down to Artist Alley and watch people drawing, and you're going to see like they're drawing the way I would play. Like, it's just like their lines on their page are the same kind of a thing to them. And it's so much fun. Really
I love it. I can't wait.
All right. So with the band, favorite rock song to play? Is there a favorite?
Ooh, favorite rock song. Well, does that mean an original composition or a cover?
Oh, let's go with cover first.
Okay, cover. One of my favorite covers to play is a 311 song called Flowing. I love that song, 311. That's a good cover to play. And originals, I wrote all the songs that my band plays, so you can't go wrong with any of them, but I'm going to go Share. That's my favorite song, Share.
Share's your favorite song. There you go. So back to the book. Was this always the title? Violin Conspiracy?
Yes, it was always the title. I, believe it or not, was not thrilled with it at first, but it grew on me, and I'm glad I didn't, fight to get it changed. It's like, okay.
Yeah, totally works. And the cover, was this the first cover, or did you go through a number of iterations on that?
That is the first cover that I actually saw. I talked to the artist, and just singing all of her praises. That was a phenomenal cover. She said, "Yeah, that was what we came up with after several failed attempts. There was some craziness going on, violins floating around and on in clouds and everything." And so, yeah, I think you came up with the right one. But yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. Matter of fact, I have it blown up. I have two huge posters like that.
It's smart because a lot of times, I'll tell you, when you're doing events, if you don't have your book behind you and you're doing it with a multiple number of authors, they don't know which book is yours. And so like the poster behind you is a good thing. I also do love the medallion does work. The Good Morning America medallion does kind of work. It feels like it's illustrating the music in some way.
I think
there
so
you go.
too.
So now the audio is narrated by J.D. Jackson. Did you have a hand in selecting him?
I did. I listened to JD and a couple of others. It was really close, but something about the way he read Ray. It's like, yeah, I could totally see this. I like the way he inflected Ray. It was perfect to me. It was really close. Everyone was really good, but he just stood out a little bit.
And I listened to a little excerpt this morning, and an audio excerpt, and he definitely nailed. Like I felt like that would be Ray talking. He had the jargon down, everything.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? Do you have 2.5 months free to just bang out another book? I mean, come on now, after you do like Good Morning America, you played on the stage at Carnegie Hall. Like, what do you do next what's your encore?
I'm actually still teaching. I taught some lessons yesterday. I have already turned in the manuscript to my second book, which is being edited right now. And I'm starting this summer on book 3, which I'm really excited to do. I'm really excited for book 2 to come out. I can't wait. It's a great story. I'm a little biased, but it is a fantastic story. And I'm really excited for everybody to read it. And book 3, yes, let's go.
Yes. So is there a date for book 2 and a title yet, or no?
Oh yeah, it's called The Composer's Last Score, and it's a music themed, but it's not music overkill. Can I just give you a brief synopsis?
Absolutely. Dying to hear.
Freddie Delaney is America's preeminent composer. He's bigger than Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, and everyone across the world knows his name. His 150th anniversary is coming up. So his family, who runs his foundation, 150 years later, says, okay, we're going to do a grand celebration. They hire a musicologist to do some research into Delaney and his music and his connection to the Black community. So during his research, the musicologist discovers, he may not have written any of this music, and it may have been appropriated from a Black woman who we now know would be living with autism, and the family will stop at nothing to keep all of this a secret.
Ooh, just like the family wanted to keep a big secret in the other book. And that letter at the end is it's brutal reading. It's brutal reading, but you see why the family does not want any of that told. Like, the story. And it's not even worth $10 million. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Exactly. I'm glad that made it in. I had to fight for that one too. That's actually the watered down version, believe it or not.
Well, also there's some movie news, because it's just not Good Morning America playing at Carnegie Hall, and like film news too, yes.
Yes, Sony has picked up the rights to the Violin Conspiracy, and they are working on a limited series right now. George Tillman, who directed The Hate U Give and the Barbershop movies and Soul Food, is the director for the project, and I cannot tell you how excited I am. I'm just thrilled. I've been in touch back and forth with them, and it's just, things are going forward, and it's going to be incredible. I know it's going to be incredible.
So are you doing the music? You were doing the music, making sure everything is perfect. I'm forgetting what the word would be. You're the contact for that.
I'm going to consult on the project.
Consult, that's the word. Okay.
And my only request, I'm not going to be one of those pushy people that says, oh, it's got to be this way. It's your creative thing. You can do whatever you want. The only stipulation is that whoever plays the lead has got to take violin lessons, because if my friends see this and the guy's like this playing the violin, Brendan, what were you thinking? I don't know. I can't do it. He's got to take lessons. That's the only stipulation.
I think you should also do a chair on set with your name on it. I mean, if we're going for it, okay.
I don't
We
want
might
to
as
be too demanding. I don't want to be too demanding, you know.
But the day that you're watching the person play, you want the seat with their name on the back of it. I think that would be like, a good
I
idea.
think I'll bring my own chair. I'll bring it in.
Oh, how humble this guy is. Oh my God, they'll have you on set in 3 minutes. Are you kidding? So gosh, this has been such a pleasure. I'm so glad we got to do this because I absolutely love the book. And as you can see, I actually remember whole parts of it in in depth. And, Carnegie Hall is not big enough for you. That's all I can say,
Wow, that's very, very kind of you. And I'm so happy that you enjoyed it. And this has been phenomenal. Carol, it's been a pleasure for me to do this today. Thank you.
So much fun. And to our listeners, we look forward to seeing you next time on Book Reporter Talks To. And don't forget, you can subscribe and never miss an episode because remember, we've interviewed about 140 authors at this point, or listen to our podcast where at the end, you'll be able to listen to an excerpt from the book as well. So thanks everybody for joining us and see you next time.